Hello again, everyone. It's good to have you with us for this event. It figures to be an exceptional one that doesn't need any build-up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop fighting.
This is the main event of the evening.
Athletes, huddle up. It's time to begin. Get focused. Let's go. Athletes, take your mark. Get set. It's time for the Addict to Athlete podcast. Hey, everybody out there, Coach Blue Robinson here. I want to thank you all so much for downloading, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast. Greatly appreciate you doing that. Hey, as always, continue to jump on our website, addicttoathlete.org. You'll find so much content there, all free for your abilities to jump on this pathway of recovery to help individuals overcome addiction, mental health, but also to strengthen your own recovery if that's the case. You can check out all kinds of good content on there. We've got our backlog podcast, our upcoming events, specifically our June run, the No One Left Behind half marathon. It's a team half marathon that when you register, you're only as fast as your slowest runner. So it's a great way to introduce someone into running at the same time, overcoming a challenge together, doing it, with a 3-on-3 team. And as always, this coming September, our Addict to Athlete proxy run. This is where you run proxy for someone that may have lost their battle to addiction or to mental health. Addicttoathlete.org is your place to find all that information. Athletes, today I have a very, very special guest, one that we found through our connection with Ed Bish. And if you guys remember Ed Bish and the efforts he's making with Purdue Pharma, I got an email from a relative or maybe a family friend, I'm not even sure, but we'll talk about that, about a young woman who's making huge like leaps and bounds attention to the overdose awareness, to her perspective in addiction recovery, and really the advocating that she's doing to help turn a light on in some pretty heavy darkness. And I'll have to say, Gracie, you are my youngest podcast guest in Addict to Athlete history. Athletes, I want to welcome Gracie Parker to our podcast. Gracie, thank you so much for being willing to share your story, to share some of the things you're doing. And you have been pretty busy. But before we jump into all of that, would you mind introducing yourself to all of our listeners?
Hi, my name is Gracie Parker. I just recently turned 10, and I am speaking for the ones who cannot speak about their trauma.
Yeah, that is a big, I think, heavy topic for someone so young. Gracie, tell me a little bit about why you felt it so important to use your voice to share with so many adults in this business and in this world. Tell me a little bit about why your voice matters so much, because I think it absolutely does.
Well, thank you for that compliment. But I am speaking for the children who cannot speak for themselves, the ones who are embarrassed to speak about it, or their parents won't let them speak about it, or they think it's like something they can brush off like mud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep going.
Then is because see a bunch of adults speak for us kids, and they don't know what's thinking through our mind or what's going through our mind.
Oh, Gracie, listeners, you can tell already Gracie's got passion here. Why is this so important to you? I'm curious, like what stands you in a position to be able to even talk about this stuff? I mean, you've had some pretty heavy stuff. You talk about trauma. You've seen it, haven't you?
I've also been through it.
Yeah. You mind sharing a little bit about what that is?
I lost my mom at 6 months old due to drugs. She fell off a 75-foot dam and crushed all the bones in her body when she was on drugs. And my dad is part of my life because of drugs and being in and out of jail. He is with his girlfriend in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And his girlfriend's 2 boys like his own kids, and I'm nothing.
Yeah. Gracie, you know what's kind of heartbreaking about that is I have a very similar story about having parents that kind of had the hands-off approach and kind of feeling like, hey, do you remember me kind of stuff? And, this trauma that we go through as kids, how in the world does a young woman like you at 10 years old, how do you even process some of the heavy stuff that you've been through at such a young age? Like, how do you wrap your head around all this?
Well, I thought before I got to see a counselor, I thought I had lost all my hope. Mm-hmm. And when I started to see a counselor, I got better. And I was able to get the help that I truly needed. the help that I needed to survive in this crazy world.
Gracie, how in the world did you trust someone like that? That's kind of a hard one. Like, as being a therapist myself, working with young kids before, sometimes it's hard to get conversations going and getting started. How did you feel the first time you met that counselor?
At first, I didn't, but the more and more I went to her, the more I talked about. And the more I talked about, the more I built trust with her.
That's incredible. That's incredible. How long had you been seeing her before you think that started to happen? I'm sure it wasn't the first time, right?
I've been seeing her since like mid-3rd grade, and I am almost done with 4th grade now. We have like 5 or 6 more weeks to go, and then I am free for the summer.
Heck yeah. So tell me a little bit, if you can, what did you and your counselor talk about that helped kind of, I don't know, strengthen some understanding and maybe start to like mend that broken heart of yours? Like, what was some of the stuff you guys worked on and talked about?
Well, I think one of the many things we talked about is I told my story to her and how I hurt and how it made me feel and the pain in my heart. And that was when she gave me coping skills, like how to draw drawing my emotions and journaling and doing things that I love, shopping.
Yeah. Just kind of doing some stuff that kind of made things look a little brighter, maybe. I think that's amazing. Now, did you get to see her at school? Is that kind of what you said?
So when COVID money was given, trauma counselors were put in schools. I found out from her that her position was going away because the money running out. And I had to find that out from her. Luckily, my parents found out where she works, and I get to see her now.
So really, it was kind of like a blessing in disguise. You were able to have this during a time of need. But what they started probably to realize is that this is something that should be going on all the time, right? I mean, we're going to get into that in a little bit. But I also think it's kind of interesting, Gracie, that there's these situations that you found yourself in where you finally have someone that you can trust and talk to about some of these heavy things. And then because of money, right, that stupid thing, money, they're like, hey, we got to bring her back. You can't have her over there anymore. You want to change that, don't you? You want to kind of put some bugs in people's ears about why it's so important to have counselors and people like her in schools, don't you?
We definitely need those people back in schools because they helped so many kids. All of the trauma counselors in the schools are going to be taken out all by 2024.
Oh, well, I'm going to help you not let that happen because I'm with you on that, Gracie. I think there's so many things that younger kids need. In fact, it's interesting. I have a friend of mine that just reached out just barely, like a couple days ago. And she was saying, we have a lot of resources on how to talk to teenagers and how to talk to young adults. She's like, but I don't know if we have a lot of resources on how to talk to kids. These are like the 12-year and younger group that you're kind of in right now. And it's kind of an interesting thing. And I said, well, I have an amazing guest coming on my podcast that's going to be talking about this. Tell me a little bit about, again, not just trusting someone with your heavy stuff, but telling your story because, talking about mom and her situation and then even dad and the heartbreak that you feel there. Gracie, not a lot of kids can understand or even kind of like process in their mind why some of that heartbreak is coming. Tell me a little bit about what you noticed and why you wanted to talk about it, because that's a very rare thing. What you're doing is very rare. Do you know that?
Other kids talk to me about what happens, and I have witnessed a kid who his dad was deployed in Poland to help Ukraine, and kids in my class, who's also in my class, were telling him that his dad wasn't going to make it. He was going to die over in Poland. How can you say that? And I've had so many others reach to me as a counselor. I'm still a kid. I also hurt. I also need someone to talk to. I can't deal with their problems and mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Gracie, there's a thing that's out there, and not a lot of people know about this. This is one of the reasons why I'm so thankful that you are willing to talk about this kind of stuff, is because, as you know, and we've talked to Ed about some of this stuff, about the opiate pandemic and the people that have been taking, all these medications and started abusing them, they forget that if they get too deep into it, they could lose the battle, so to speak, and leave kids like you and loved ones behind. And so you are part of a generation that not a lot of people are expecting. And what I mean by that is so many adults have lost their battle to addiction that they forget that in the wake, they leave people like you kind of behind. And they forget that you're going to need lots of help and services and trust and people you can count on. You know, they call this group of people opiate orphans, which I don't like that name. We got to come up with a better name than that, Gracie, okay? But you are in a position to help so many people because not a lot of kids know how to communicate this kind of stuff. When did you first start feeling comfortable to talk about this kind of stuff outside of your counselor, just with your grandparents and some of the adults in your life? Did you feel like you could talk about this kind of trauma with them too at the same time, or did it take you a little while?
I usually talk to them before I talk to the trauma counselor because they were like therapists, see, because I didn't have one.
Yeah. I think it's incredibly brave of you, though, Gracie, because not a lot of kids, again, would feel comfortable to do that. They kind of put on a happy face and pretend like everything's okay. And, you know, when they say behind closed doors, it's not okay. I'm just really kind of like I'm blown away that you're willing to talk about this stuff so much that you're not just talking to me on my podcast. This is small fry compared to what you've been doing. What else have you been doing the last couple of weeks and what's coming up that you've been really kind of a big part of?
So the first thing I did, I started speaking at small events, and then soon that led to Washington, D.C. in front of the Capitol, and then that led to going to the school board, planning my rally, and then planning my rally and having my rally, and then county commissioner, city hall, and then the task force, and then after that, I come to the school board again this month to talk about my ideas and more why we need trauma counselors in school, and then I think I go back to Washington, D.C. and then 2 more meetings in May. I'm speaking in May, I think another time in May, and then back to the Capitol, and who knows what's after that. Oh, yeah, and I have a chance to go to the House and Senate floor, even the governor's floor in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, my gosh. Gracie, I am honored to meet you and know you then. That is the coolest thing. That's a lot of heavy work. I would be tired of a schedule like that. How are you doing all that?
I don't know.
You must have a big, big heart and want to help lots of people because I'm telling you, that's a lot for like, you know, adults to be handling. But you got a strong message. I'm curious. It's funny, listeners, too. Before we started recording this podcast, Gracie said she was 10% nervous. And I don't know why. If you're talking to all those people, you are on point, kiddo. And I'm proud of you. That's amazing. When they see you come in, like say on Washington, D.C. or the Mental Health Task Force, when they see you, what do you think they think? Are they thinking, oh, what's this kid going to tell us? But I know what they feel after you're done talking because I'm feeling that way right now. What do you think most people think when they see a 10-year-old little kid come walking in and then start speaking from the heart like you do? What do you think the adults think?
Well, first they're like, she ain't got nothing to say. And then they're like, and then after I speak, they're like, she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah. Does that feel good?
And then they support.
Yeah. Does it? I would imagine so. What's some of the compliments that you've gotten from some of these adults in leadership positions? I mean, Gracie, I'm sure that they're coming to you after you're done talking. It's kind of a fun thing. After you're done talking, everyone wants to come and meet you and shake your hand. What do you notice most people say when they come up and talk to you?
Well, not many people really come up and talk to me. It's more my Oma and Opa. But some of the compliments my Oma and Opa have told me, that's German for grandma and grandpa, they've told me, like, that girl is going places. She's going to be president. She's going to be president one day. And then usually people just hand me their business cards and I have to give out my email. But usually they tell me stuff like, well, your message is important, so here's my business card so you can talk about this here.
So you get a lot of, like, other speaking because other people say, hey, I got some people that need to hear this then. So that's what keeps you busy, right?
I got standing ovation at the commissioners meeting and at the mental health task force.
Gracie, what did that feel like for you? That's a big deal. Like, I know you're 10, but you know what that means. That means that's the most respect and that people really were blown away. They were moved and touched by your words. When that happens, when adults stand up for you, what does that feel like?
It's like, you don't know how I'm feeling. Yeah. But when they stand with me and let a child take over, then that's like they're standing with me, not telling me.
I can't even imagine what that would be like. I've done a couple of talks and stuff in my life, a bunch of presentations and stuff, and sometimes people stand up. But Gracie, I'm kind of blown away by what you're willing to share and get out there. I mean, it's one of these things where I know your Oma and Opa like stand behind you 100%. And I love that you call them Oma and Opa because, my wife, we have an Oma and Opa on my wife's side too. So I love that you call them that. It's the coolest thing. I've got to give them some credit too for letting you do all this.
Yeah, but see, it's like, it didn't feel right calling them mom and dad, and it didn't feel right calling them grandma and grandpa. Mm-hmm. So my Oma is from Germany and speaks fluent German, and I am learning German. And so ever since I was little, they've always been my Oma and Opa. I
love it. That's the coolest thing ever. So tell me a little bit about this. When you do all this stuff, I mean, you are still, a 10-year-old girl who wants to, do 10-year-old girl kind of things too. Do you ever feel like you're doing too much, or do you feel like, no, this is my purpose, this is my work, and I want to do more of it?
Sometimes there's times where I feel like, sometimes I need time for myself, and my parents, my Oma and Opa, respect that. They're like, we get that you need the time, and I end up getting that time for myself. But yes, this is my purpose. This is why I am here.
Yeah, I agree. So tell me a little bit more about your mission, okay? Because I want our listeners to know this, because if you need it out there in South Carolina, we need it out here in Utah as well, and we need it all over the country. When you talk to these adults who are in positions to make change and to make some calls on how to better our school systems, what's some of the stuff that you're talking about and advocating to get counselors and to get people in schools? Like, what's your message to these leaders?
My message is us kids hurt, and we need you guys to understand that and help us get trauma counselors back in elementary schools. Prevention versus intervention. I don't want to end up like my parents, and I speak for all kids when I say that.
That's a hard one to kind of put your mind around. I know, like, so many times, like, we want to grow up and be like our parents, but there's some of us, Gracie, me included, that I didn't want to do that because my parents made some pretty poor decisions and mistakes that put me in some bad situations too. So I kind of get where you're coming from there. I still love them, as I know you do, but, like, there's also, like, I can do better, right? Like, I know that I can do a little better than what they did, and so I'm not going to make those same choices. When you talk like that, do people listen?
The kids need the help now, because when we're older and we don't learn the coping skills now, it's going to cost 3 or more times the money, at least. This generation needs to change. It's not going to get better.
I hear you. Gracie, right now in our country, we still lose about 290 people every day to drug and alcohol overdoses every day. That's a lot of people. That's like a big plane crashing every day.
We lose too many kids to suicide. Youth Risk Behavioral Survey was taken out of schools in 2014. It was through middle school and high school, and it told whether a kid had suicidal thoughts, or whether they were hurting, or whether they needed someone to talk to. And see, the survey is anonymous. So your name is never put to that survey. And it could show percentages like how many kids had a plan to kill themselves. The middle school and the high school, 13% of those kids had a plan in place to kill themselves. That's 13% too many. Mm-hmm. And who knows what the numbers are now.
They stopped doing it?
They stopped it.
Do you know why?
They were misusing the data. Well, parents and other people were misusing the data and kind of got super, super mad, felt like that, how their children had those suicidal thoughts, or they didn't want to know because their child is so perfect and healthy.
Oh, my goodness. You're right. I think that listeners, this is coming from a 10-year-old who's seeing this stuff firsthand, and with the assistance of her grandparents are able to kind of articulate some of this information. I'm curious, though, because I'm with you. You know, I think there are a lot of people out there that are so worried that something could happen to their kids like that they'd rather not know. That's not a very good plan, is it? Like, if we don't know, maybe it can't happen. Because if you don't know, it's still going to happen, isn't it?
Instead of shaming your kids, help your kids.
My goodness. Why do you think it is that so many parents might be nervous to get their kids in front of a counselor or a therapist? You know, because sometimes that comes with a little bit of a stigma, right?
Yes, but the parents think they'll lose their reputation because they're taking their kid to therapy or whatever.
What's the truth, though?
The truth is there aren't.
So, Gracie, that's kind of a heavy thing to think about. That a lot of parents are kind of nervous about the data, so they want to pull that thing out there. Had you ever taken that assessment yourself? Do you remember being given that?
No, because I was not born. Well, it's only for middle school and high school.
Do you think that should change, though? Because I think we are really scared to talk to kids about how they're feeling, because a lot of kids don't know how.
Honestly, I think the survey should start in second grade, but it's age appropriate.
Gracie, I think you're spot on here, because I was talking about this with my wife today. Okay, we were hearing some stuff about insurances not paying medical bills and deductibles for therapy and all this kind of stuff. And it got me thinking that, like, you know, we hear about these sad situations that happen with school shootings and mental health issues and stuff. And everyone wants mental health, you know, coverage, but no one kind of like realizes that stuff has to start early. Like you said, that's going to be the name of your title here on this podcast. I think it's fantastic. What do you think most people are afraid of about talking to little kids, elementary school, up to young adults? Why do you think they're so nervous about talking to kids about real stuff like this?
Because if they can't name the problem, just like with our homeless down here, if they can't name the problem, it doesn't exist. If they can't talk about the problem, it doesn't exist. But it does, and it's growing stronger and stronger the more they ignore it.
You're absolutely right. Those are wise words, kiddo. Tell me a little bit about this book. You got some thoughts on a book that's coming out here too. It's called Shattered, I believe. I'm reading some of it right now. It's pretty heavy stuff. I like it. And thank you for letting me be a part of that. What's this book about?
Recovery/activism.
I saw it, and I've been invited to help out write the foreword for that, and I've been reading it. And my heart is heavy with some of these stories. Why do you want to put this out there? These are heavy stories, but they're real too, you know? Like, they really do get you thinking and get you feeling. What is your hopes for this book? I hope the more it's read, the more people realize it's a problem that shouldn't be ignored. The more people that are behind this, the more the government realizes they can't ignore it. Because our kids are the future. I am the future. I am the next generation. And And the more they ignore this problem, day by day, the problem gets stronger and stronger and stronger until you can't ignore it. So stop it when it's little, like an ant you can step on or a spider you can step on, before you have to use bug spray to kill it. You're right. You know, Gracie, I'm so proud of you. I can't wait to watch some of the stuff you're doing. You are the future, and I would love to hand my reins of therapy and counseling over to someone like you who truly gets it and understands it. You have a heart that just kind of pumps with empathy, and empathy is kind of that thing that's not as present as it used to be. I can tell you feel deeply. Don't run faster than you have strength, okay? Keep yourself healthy. Right, but also, like, I do that. Rally your troops. Can I advertise for my rally or no? Absolutely, you can. I would love to hear about it. Let's go. Okay, so my rally is here in North Carolina, downtown at the gazebo. It's North Carolina, downtown at our gazebo. It's April 30th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. We have our police chief speaking, our senator, the mayor, commissioner, and very other important people, like the one who runs the school for the kids who are bad. She really doesn't think these kids are bad. Yeah. Because these kids have been through trauma and they don't know how to deal with that trauma. Yep. Which is why they're put in a detention school. Oh. And we are going to finish to
from the courthouse to the town hall.
Are you going to do any kind of live feed so some of the people can, like, listening can watch? Is anybody going to have a Facebook Live or something?
I got a tech guy.
Somebody that's going to videotape it. So.
We have a tech guy who's going to videotape everything, and he is so into with what we're doing. The speakers are, well, me, and I think a couple other people are going to get wireless mics so we can walk around and talk.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I want to watch it. I want to support you. We'll make sure we get more people to tune in, and we'll call on our folks out there on the East Coast to kind of rally around you. Gracie, what's the message you want to give to not just parents, but kids that are in your same situation that may not know what steps to take next? What would you tell the kids that are in your situation that don't know what's out there? How do you get them to start talking about the heavy stuff with someone they trust?
You are not alone. You may think you have been through HE double hockey sticks,
yeah,
but a lot of us other kids have.
Yeah.
No trauma is alike. No trauma is alike. Even losing your pet can be such a hard trauma, as hard as losing a loved one. Turn to someone you can talk to, because in the future, it's going to be worse if you don't deal with it now.
You have strong, powerful words, and I just want to thank you for being here today and for your Oma to kind of allow this to happen. Like I said, I mean, you got a lot of passion in that heart of yours, beating strong, kid. I can feel it. So thank you so much, Gracie. We're looking forward to chatting with you more in the future. I know that Marissa and I are going to be traveling out east here soon, and I hope one day to be able to shake your hand and thank you in person, because I think you're doing great work. So thank you so much.
Remember to know me before I become president, and also I am honored to be your guys' podcast also.
But Gracie, thank you so much. Listeners, you've been well fed. This is a proof that inspiration can come from even the smallest of hearts that have great, big, huge consequences for good if you're allowing yourself to talk about the hard stuff, the heavy stuff. Let's get behind Gracie. Let's get this book published, and we'll publicize that when it comes out. Again, listeners, continue to stay close to the website, addicttoathlete.org, so you can find all of this content and more. And until next time, please continue to turn your mess into your message.